Welcome to the Author Friendly Podcast. This is your host, Carla King, talking with the people behind the products, tools, and services you use on your self-publishing journey. This podcast was inspired by my consumer's guide for self-publishers, which you can find at authorfriendly.com. Also on authorfriendly.com are the show notes, so you can follow along with this week's guest in our next half an hour. Thanks for listening.
Sometimes authors come and they are so focused on getting an agent that they kind of ignore the other opportunities around them. Certainly the other professionals that are there, like yourself, like you said, like all the technology companies, the exhibitors, and you've got these experts who work for the companies right there that can answer questions for you.
Do you go to writers' conferences? Many authors find the cost prohibitive, but in this episode of the Author Friendly Podcast, we talk with Laurie McLean about your return on investment for going into a conference, what you get out of it. Laurie McLean is the director of the San Francisco Writers Conference, and I run the self-publishing and technology track there. We talk about what makes the conference different and how to organize your time, because there are over 100 presenters there and a bunch of agents. The tracks are fiction, nonfiction, young adult and children's, self-publishing and technology, marketing and business. You've got workshops on books to screen. There are pre-conference workshops and post-conference workshops. And of course, you'll also be meeting and pitching agents if you like. So please enjoy this conversation about how to get the most out of a writers' conference with me and Laurie McLean. Hi, Laurie. Welcome to the Author Friendly Podcast.
Hi, Carla. Thanks for having me.
What is special about the San Francisco Writers Conference? When is it? Can you just give it to us in a nutshell?
You got it. The San Francisco Writers Conference is in San Francisco, obviously, but one of the most gorgeous and wonderful cities in the world. It's always written up as one of the top 5 writing conferences in the United States every year. So that makes us feel proud and happy that we're doing a good job. It's always over President's Day weekend. So that's mid-February, around Valentine's Day. In 2019, it will be February 14th through 17th. It is at the Hyatt Regency Embarcadero, which is right down on the waterfront. And we're very excited. This is our first year there. For the past 13 years, we've been at the Mark Hopkins Hotel high above Nob Hill. The other nice thing is that it is literally steps away from BART, which is Bay Area Rapid Transit, which connects all over the Bay Area. So this way people can park at a BART station and be delivered right to the door of the conference. So we're excited about that.
Now, you've been the director, you were just made director, but you've been involved in the conference since the beginning. So can you just give us a sketch of who you are and what you do in the literary world and for the Writers Conference?
Let's see, where do I start?
Okay, so I know, it's been a long time. It's been a journey.
I know, like going back in the Wayback Machine. We've been doing the San Francisco Writers Conference for 16 years. So I've been on the management team for 13 years. I started out as an attendee in year 2 of the conference. I had just written my first novel and I went there because I thought, I've just written the next bestseller. I'll go and find an agent and just start collecting my checks. And then over the 3-day period, I learned everything I didn't know about publishing. So it was really an eye-opener, and it was really wonderful. You know, after I got over my exhaustion and paranoia that what was I thinking, I ended up getting involved in the conference itself. And now, 15 years later, I'm the director of it. The other thing that happened was I became a literary agent. For 20 years prior to that, and I've been an agent now for 15 years, but for 20 years prior to that, I was in the high-tech industry and high-tech marketing. I owned my own PR and marketing agency. So I really thought I had semi-retired and was going to live the life of a dilettante. But no, that was not happening because publishing decided that it was going to go through a radical revolution and transformation because of technology. So I ended up being in exactly the right place at exactly the right time. Thank you, universe. And so that's how I got involved in being an agent, and I got involved in the San Francisco Writers Conference on the management team, and now I'm the director, which still kind of blows my mind how serendipitous events can, determine where you are in your career.
It can be life-changing. And I don't know, your company, Fuse Literary, if that came directly out of contacts from the Writers Conference or not, but I'm sure it had something
It
to do
did
with it.
actually. Yeah, I met my business partner, Gordon Warnock, at the San Francisco Writers Conference. And we both had been talking about how agencies needed to change because you're so involved in self-publishing. When Amazon brought out the Kindle and KDP and Smashwords brought out a way to also bring, self-publish your books. And then social media gave authors the tools to promote their books, which was never affordable to authors unless they were bestsellers before. Now, all of a sudden, it was. And when all those things happened, I said to Gordon at one dinner, boy, if agents don't change, they're going to get squeezed out of the middle, because this is what I'd seen it happen in industry after industry after industry in high tech, where technology had come in and transformed the industry. And publishing, Carla, really hadn't changed in over 200 years. This was an industry that was ripe for change, and Amazon and Smashwords and other companies like that made it happen. And all of a sudden, the authors were at the top of the pyramid rather than getting squished at the bottom. And it was heady, and I knew that I wanted to be an active part of creating the change rather than just going along in its wake. And Gordon felt the same way. So that's how we ended up forming Fuse Literary, as we're trying to create the agency of the future.
And I just really appreciate you and the team involving me in the self-publishing arena earlier than most conferences had. I was always there as a teacher screaming, self-publish, while everybody was kind of turning their nose up at it. And then a few years ago, there was a complete sea change. So there was a hybrid publishing theme. And I think since then, the conference has just completely embraced the tech and self-publishing side of it. It doesn't hurt that it's in Multimedia Gulch, Silicon Valley.
Self-publishing is probably the biggest change in publishing and the most exciting thing happening in publishing today. And I guess it might seem weird or disingenuous for some of your listeners to hear a literary agent say that, but we really embrace that at Fuse. We have our own assisted self-publishing arm that we don't necessarily go into it saying, how can we make the most money publishing books for our clients? What we say our two goals is to expand their fan base and to more firmly show their author branding. So those are our goals. And again, I don't want to sidetrack it because I know we're talking about the San Francisco Writers Conference, but a lot of the same things that I'm doing in Fuse Literary, I want to incorporate into the San Francisco Writers Conference. And like you say, I think we have, with your help, because you were one of the early pioneers in really digging deep to find out what technology was out there, because it's not always the obvious ones. I mean, I talk about Amazon and Smashwords, but you also find the game changers. You find the people with the technology that are really going to make a difference, and you find them really early on when they're small.
I was really happy to have Beta Books there.
Yes.
A Beta publishing platform, and they just rocked the conference. And, to meet them and find out how to get early readers so that they can launch their book out of the gate with 5-star reviews on Amazon, because they've built their street team from their early readers. So those connections are so important, and they'll be there again too. But before we get too much further into the details, there's several tracks at the Writers Conference and also more than 100 presenters. So can you help us figure out how to divide your time, who goes to what track, and talk about the agents as well?
This is the universe getting revenge, right? Because I always ask authors to summarize their books in 25 words or less. So now you're doing it to me. I think that's totally fair. So the conference starts on Thursday. Well, actually, we have a non-official start with tips and techniques on how to get the most out of the conference Thursday morning, the 14th. And then it really registration starts around noon on Thursday. And then we go into I won't call it a general thing, but it's kind of easing people into the conference before we, do the fire hose approach of 5 simultaneous sessions and exhibitors going on and lots of other things happening simultaneously. So we have 5 tracks. One is nonfiction. One is fiction, the obvious ones, right? We also have a robust children's and teen or YA program. You are the guru of self-publishing and technology, which is another track. And then this year, I'm actually taking on marketing and business. And then I got one that I kind of call etc. because I don't know. It's a miscellaneous thing. I don't know where to put things like books to screen, which used to be books to film, but now everything is moving to streaming and television and all kinds of other things. I mean, if you look at the Emmys that just happened, it seemed like Hulu and Netflix and Amazon Studios were the most exciting parts about that. So I'm calling it books to screen now, and podcasting and other things like that, that maybe they skirt around technology, but there's more to it than that. I mean, the idea of how to do a good podcast versus the technology behind how do you do it in the first place? What do you need? You need a microphone, you need probably some kind of an app. So they're two kind of qualitatively different approaches to podcasting. So those are basically the tracks, and each one has about, 10 to 15 sessions in each one of those tracks.
And then all this time, there are agents that people are dying to talk to. How does that work?
Okay, so I've got to tell you that being an agent myself, whenever I go to writers' conferences, and I'm not tooting my own horn, but agents are like the rock stars of the conference. Because everybody goes and they're like, I want to meet an agent and I want to get an agent so I can get a book deal. I mean, self-publishing also, people want to learn about that. But meeting an agent from outside of wherever you live is really hard unless you do it at a conference. So we bring in agents from New York, San Diego, Seattle. We've got some coming from Colorado, from Wisconsin, all over the place. But we have over 20 agents. My goal is to try and get between 25 and 30, which is a heck of a lot of agents. And we're trying to give attendees better access to the agents too. So we have speed dating with agents on Sunday morning for 4 hours, 4 one-hour sessions. And that way you have an hour to meet as many agents as you can, and you get to pitch them on your book for 3 minutes. That's great, but it's also very stressful. And even though we give tips throughout the conference, and we even have like a Saturday evening session that's run by one of our local writers groups on how to do your pitch well and how to develop a good pitch that works, it's still stressful. So we also are doing this one-on-one conversations with agents that you can sign up for. And it costs a little bit of money, but it gives you 15 minutes of one-on-one time with an agent. But we pick agents that want to be accessible to attendees. So if you see an agent and they've got a badge on, you can just go up and talk to them. That's why we try and get you to do what we call the elevator pitch. Develop your 25 words or less pitch about your book so that all you're trying to do is get the agent to say, sure, send me some of that, because they're not going to sign you up in the elevator. But you can get them excited about what you're writing. That's what we try and do. And like I said, we've got agents from New York and all over the country coming.
And more agents are saying, hey, look for a hybrid deal first or self-publish first. And they really, a lot of them give a great advice to authors on how to break in.
That's true. And, my personal goal is I like to give value to every conversation I have. The value might not mean that you're going to be my client, but the value will mean that I'm going to give you either a piece of information or a contact or somebody who I think would be good for you in that conversation. So you'll get something out of it. But there's two things going on here. Sometimes authors come and they are so focused on getting an agent that they kind of ignore the other opportunities around them. Certainly the other professionals that are there, like yourself, like you said, like all the technology companies, the exhibitors. If you like self-publishing, it's a way to go around and test drive all the different self-publishing platforms and tools that are out there that you would have to kind of do yourself. And you've got these experts who work for the companies right there that can answer questions for you. So that's valuable. But also the other, somewhere between 350 and 500 attendees, you might be meeting a future critique partner or someone who becomes a best-selling author and can give you a blurb for your book, or just someone who gives you good advice. Or you don't normally get to hang out with other writers. Writing is a solitary profession. With the solitariness of being a writer, it's great to hang out with other writers too. They get it. It's almost like you're talking in shorthand when you're talking about the problems you had with a mushy middle of a novel, or trying to get enough sources as a freelance author of an article for Huffington Post, or whatever it is, whatever your specific thing is. Just talking to other authors at the parties, at the lunches, at the breakfasts, in the hallway between sessions, at night when you go to dinner. We have this, who I call the bon vivant of the San Francisco Writers Conference, Conference. He's on our board, Harvey Paul, and he takes speakers and attendees out to dinner every night at some iconic San Francisco restaurant. So, I mean, this was founder Michael Larson's just magic jewel, where he said, I don't want anyone to feel that they're alone at this conference. I want them to feel that they're a part of the family. And that's one thing that we intend to carry on and carry forward, that when you come, you can ask anybody anything, whether it's a presenter, whether it's an agent, an editor, or someone on the staff, and they will help you. So it's a very familial, collegial environment, which, you know what I mean, publishing can be kind of a cold, scary industry, and we're trying to make it not that way.
It's true. It is very solitary. I do think it's worth investing in at least one writers conference a year. You know, they're not cheap. What's the ticket price for this? What does it cost for people to get there?
Let me talk about that at the end of what I want to say about that, because there are many ways to learn about writing and publishing, both online and off, but a writer's conference really supercharges your writing career. I've had to think about this a lot because it's not a trivial investment. You've got, even if you take BART, you know, the local thing, and you stay at your house instead of staying in the hotel, it's still going to be somewhere between $600 and $800, depending on when you sign up. But here are the benefits. Our tagline for the conference and our theme every year is craft, commerce, and community. And it really shows through in how we organize this conference. The benefits are the people that you meet. And like I said, it could be an agent, an editor, someone in technology, an exhibitor, or another attendee. It's education. You get a bit of everything. Yes, it's a very broad, general, dip your toe into all these different areas, but that should give you a good game plan for the next year as an author as to what you want to explore more on your own, whether it's with a local writers group, whether it's an online forum or podcast, or even a Google search on a question that you have. This is a good way to kind of set your goals for the year. And then the third is inspiration. That's what I meant when I said it really supercharges your writing career, because I guarantee after 3 days of total immersion about writing and publishing, you're going to be supercharged going off and finishing that second edit that you need to do, or your copy edit, or just getting your manuscript out to agents and editors.
Yeah, it is. It is energizing. And that's why it's so important to make connections there and keep them throughout the year. And there's a lot of encouragement to do so at the conference. There's also Poetry Night, which is very iconic San Francisco event.
Oh, yes. Bring your own bongos, right?
Bring your own, yeah. Not just poetry, it's spoken word or, you know, readings.
Yep. Flash fiction, poetry, spoken word. It's our gala. We changed it from Friday to Saturday night with the new hotel, because we're going to start with the gala, and then we will just, you know, merge seamlessly into jazz and poetry, which, like you say, is very quintessential San Francisco. We really wanted to rethink the conference as to why is this different from going to a writers' conference in New York? Well, it's in San Francisco, right? What's big about San Francisco? Certainly the waterfront. Certainly the Barbary Coast kind of feel, and own voices and diversity is really important in the presenters that we select, as well as the people that attend. And Jazz and Poetry Night, it's so cool. I mean, you just go and you hear somebody playing cello softly behind someone who's, you know, doing a screed about, you know, something that happened to them in high school. It's wonderful. And other things that I think are kind of unique is this idea of giving back and generosity. I think that's also important, whether it filters down from how everyone treats you when you're an attendee to things like our online and on-site auction, which always benefits some organization in the publishing industry. This year it was Bink. They have a fund that helps booksellers who are going through hard times get over the hump. So that's who we're benefiting this year. And people like Nina Amir and Kevin Smokler are giving consultations in the lobby, and all of the money that they earn for that will go towards scholarships, because we do have scholarships too. You can find all this information on the website. So those kind of things, you know, the heart. I left my heart in San Francisco, right? We really want to embody that in our conference.
There have been so many people who've come back, writers who've come back year after year after year, and have been able to talk about their successes.
Well, we start the conference off by having people come on stage, a selection of them, because there have been a lot of successes, but have them come on stage and talk about their successes. But then you and I actually close the conference with this informal decompression session where people can talk about, I came to it like this, but now I'm here and I'm worried about this, or I didn't understand that, or I don't know how to do this. And you and I can help them even more and kind of set the stage, a transition, if you will, to going out of the conference and taking those lessons and applying them to their writing life. And then we do a big Chinese feast that anybody can attend who's been at the conference. So
I wasn't sure we were going to do that again this year, and I love it. I'm thrilled, but not enough people come. So I want to say, whether it's the San Francisco Writers Conference or any of other writers conference you go to, stay till the end. I mean, don't leave the day that the conference ends. Leave the next morning.
And they can stay because Monday is President's Day, so a lot of things are closed. Good. It's a good way to do it. Stay Sunday night, decompress, talk to some people. Again, you have no idea once everybody lets their guard down what's going to come out of it. Plus, we have master classes on Monday, so you could even do that. Decide, I really do need to work on scene structure, or I really do need to work on pacing, or I need to build an author website. And we have master classes that last 3 hours for each one of those areas and a lot more. Can I talk about our keynote speakers for a second?
This year, I just looked at it before we started talking. Super diverse. Mm-hmm.
I am so excited about this year because it's my first one to select the keynoters. So I'm bragging a little bit, but we just got Jose Antonio Vargas, and his book, Dear America, Notes of an Undocumented Citizen, came out this week. So he's doing the talk show circuit. You can see, if you go online or if you turn on, NBC News or whatever, you'll find him. And probably Sunday, there'll be a lot of them too. But he's a Pulitzer Prize winning journalist and an Emmy nominated filmmaker. He's formed a nonprofit organization called Define America. He is a dreamer. He is fighting injustice and anti-immigrant hate through the power of storytelling. And he was the first professional person who, like I say, Pulitzer Prize winning journalist, and he is an undocumented immigrant in the United States. So he is really trying to tell people, what does it mean to be an American? I mean, he's never lived anywhere else, yet he's under the threat of being deported constantly. So he's being very brave, and I have heard that his talks, his speeches are so moving. I can't wait. I'm so excited about it already. So he's our Friday morning keynoter. And then our Saturday morning keynoter is Jane Friedman, who basically is one of the smartest people in publishing. She's got 20 years experience. She used to be the editor of Writer's Digest magazine, which is one of the, pivotal magazines and sources for information for authors. But she advises the publishers on what they should be doing, and everyone should subscribe to her free blog. She gave a keynote for us, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, and it was mind-blowing. So I expect a lot from her. And then Saturday luncheon will be Catherine Coulter, who is a thriller author and a romance author, and she's had over 80 books published, almost all of them New York Times bestsellers. So she's also a phenomenal, inspirational speaker. So all three of them are going to be knock it out of the park, amazing talks.
So now let's talk about the structure of the conference. You've organized it a little bit differently this year, right?
We wanted people to get out and explore San Francisco because we kept having everything in the hotel. So people would say, I love the conference. It was mind-blowing, but, I never got to see anything in San Francisco. And now we're across the street from the Ferry Building, which has a farmer's market on Thursday and Saturday, I think. And then there are all those weird, cool vendors that sell stuff, street vendors that sell all kinds of stuff right next to the hotel. So as you're going out of the hotel and walking towards the Embarcadero, which is where the Ferry Building is, you also pass all these artisans who, have crafted stuff that, again, is quintessentially San Francisco. So
it is, and the Ferry Building is amazing, and Book Passage, bookstore branch there. Not far to walk to City Lights, North Beach, and Chinatown.
That's true. Yep, absolutely. And it's all flat rather than having to go up and down that huge knob hill.
Yeah, I'm really glad it moved to the Embarcadero, as much as I love Nob Hill, but it was limiting. So, hey, I'm going to walk up the hill and go to Grace Cathedral and walk the labyrinth anyway, but it's
There
a
you
choice.
go. It's always an option. Well,
Yeah, anything else about the conference you wanted to mention?
I just wanted to mention the website. The address is S as in Sam, F as in Frank, writers, plural.org, sfwriters.org. We've been doing this for 15 years. We've got an amazing group of people on the management team. Heck, Linda Lee, our volunteer director, has over 70 volunteers. So if somebody wants to become a volunteer, watch the website. On the contact page is her. You can click on her name, and then you might be a volunteer. And for working at the conference, you get to see some of the sessions. I think it's like work half time, go to the sessions the other time. So right now, I think the conference cost is $795. I'm not sure. So it sounds like a lot, but we pack so much into it that if you're going to go to one conference a year, this is the one I think you should go to.
Yeah, it's a big one. I think it has more faculty than any other conference in the U.S. Is that right?
Yeah. It's like a 3-to-1 or 4-to-1, 3.5-to-1 ratio. So you're definitely going to be bumping into agents and editors and presenters everywhere.
And so for the exhibitors and the sponsors, are there any more opportunities still open?
Yes, there are. Go to the website. We do already have a bunch of sponsors and exhibitors signed up, but they should contact Barbara at sfwriters.org. And she can send them a kit of information. I think it'll be downloadable on the site. One thing I didn't mention is that we also have information tables for our local writers groups, but even national writers groups could send us stuff and we would put it out on the table. We don't invite individual writers to do that because we would just be overwhelmed. But for writers groups, even across the country, if they want to have something about, like we have the California Writers Clubs with dozens and dozens of chapters all over California. If there are organizations like that in other states, we get people from other countries as well as all 50 states coming to this conference. It's really one of the best.
Yeah, that's always fun. Okay, well, great, Laurie. So just to end, from running this conference now and being involved in it for so many years and running Fuse Literary and your long history as a hotshot PR person in Silicon Valley, I want to hear your tips for author success. This is what I'm waiting for.
Oh my gosh, Carla, putting me on the spot.
No pressure, Laurie, no pressure.
Oh my God. Well, I guess maybe as an agent, I'm still not jaded. I am very excited always to work with authors. I have 28 authors as clients. The agency, Fuse Literary, has, I think, over 130 clients because we have 8 agents. But here's what I want people to remember. Sometimes you transition from being a writer, so the creative part of the process, to being a published author, which is the business part of the process. You get jaded, you get frustrated, you get upset. And I always want people to remember to connect with why they wanted to be a writer in the first place. That it probably wasn't to sell 1 million books, because there are a lot of other ways to make a lot of money that are a lot easier than writing. But it was probably because you either had something to say, or you had a family story that you felt was important to tell, or the characters in your head just wouldn't shut up and you needed to get them on the page and get them out there so that they would. Remember that, because as with any other career, you're always learning, you're always moving forward, you're always networking with people and moving ahead. So, in fact, it's encapsulated by my favorite cartoon, Carla, which has 2 people standing on top of a cliff looking down at the ingress and egress point of a marina. And there's one person in a little dinghy and 2 people in a day sailor and a small group of people in a pretty nice sailboat and then a huge yacht. And the caption says, "I want one of those." And it's because we're never satisfied with where we are. And so I guess my tip is don't lose sight of why you became a writer in the first place as you're moving through the process of publishing and getting that bigger boat every time.
Wise words. Thank you so much. And I'll see you before February, but I hope to see many of the podcast listeners in February. Again, you can find the show notes at authorfriendly.com. You can find all the links that Laurie and I mentioned there, or just go to sfwriters.org. Thanks again, Laurie.
Thank you for having me, Carla, and keep fighting the good fight for all of your fans out there.
So that's it for now. I hope you'll listen in to the next episode of the Author Friendly Podcast, where you'll hear more voices from the people behind the tools, services, and products you depend on for your self-publishing journey. Find the show notes at authorfriendly.com, along with links to iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, SoundCloud, and all the other places you can listen to the podcast. And can I ask you a favor? Ratings help float the podcast to the top so that other authors like you can find it. So if you'd navigate to your podcast subscription service and give it some stars, I'd really appreciate it. Also on authorfriendly.com, you'll find free resources like my Consumer's Guide for Self-Publishers, which was the inspiration for this podcast. Yes, this is my obsessively updated ebook with reviews of the products, tools, and services that you'll hear about in this podcast. They'll help you not only write your book, but design it, format it, print, distribute, and market your books, and also do business as an author. If you need more help in your self-publishing journey, I've created a complete series of online courses that will help you with all of those tasks. Just go to selfpubbootcampcourses.com or pop me a note via email at hello@selfpubbootcamp.com, or just go to the site, selfpubbootcamp.com, if you have any questions at all. Okay, signing off again. I hope you'll subscribe and tune in next week for the Author Friendly Podcast, your consumer's guide in audio format to help guide your self-publishing journey. Thanks.